After nearly a decade of passion, trophies, and iconic fist bumps, Jurgen Klopp's era at Liverpool came to an emotional end in the 23-24 season. Now, stepping into that legacy was no small task, but Arne Slot, relatively unknown outside of the Netherlands, was the man chosen to carry the torch. The question, of course, was could he match or even surpass the standards Klopp had set? What unfolded in the 24-25 season was something few predicted. Liverpool, under Slot, were not just competitive, they were Premier League champions. In this video, we will break down how Arne Slot achieved that success in his very first season at Anfield, examining his tactics, key players, and how he evolved Liverpool's style whilst respecting the club's identity. Replacing a club legend like Jurgen Klopp is one of the most difficult jobs in football. Klopp's brand of high intensity, gegenpressing defined Liverpool for years, winning them everything from the Premier League to the Champions League. But Slot didn't try to imitate Klopp. Instead, he took a bold yet respectful approach, retaining Liverpool's pressing DNA while introducing more controlled positional build-up patterns. He focused on structured possession, encouraging the team to dominate space as much as the ball. There were, of course, doubters. Fans and pundits alike questioned if his tactical ideas would even work in the Premier League and if he would be able to follow in the footsteps of Jurgen Klopp, especially with players who are accustomed to Klopp's explosive transitions and his style of play. But Slot's composure and clarity in his methods soon started to win people over. Slot's task was made even harder by a disrupted pre-season. Many of Liverpool's core players were away representing their nations at Euro 24 or at Copa America. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Dominic Szoboszlai, and several key names missed crucial tactical sessions. But one player who was there during the early parts of Arne Slot's pre-season training was Curtis Jones. According to reports from training ground insiders, Jones immediately took to Slot's structured system. The increased emphasis on positional awareness and patient build-up suited his skill set. Slot used the limited group at his disposal to begin laying tactical foundations. By the time the Euro players and Copa America players returned, there was already a clear idea forming. The system focused on ball circulation, vertical movement off the ball, and controlled pressing phases. Arne Slot inherited a Liverpool team deeply defined by Jurgen Klopp's identity, built on intensity, gegenpressing, and vertical transitions. Klopp's system relied heavily on winning second balls, flooding central zones after regaining possessions, and playing at relentless tempo. Whilst this approach had brought immense success, it was also physically taxing, and by the end of Klopp's tenure, had become increasingly easier to disrupt. Slot's philosophy was different. He didn't want a team that played with chaos, he wanted control. From day one, Slot set out to reshape Liverpool's tactical DNA around structure, spacing, and game intelligence. In possession, Slot introduced a 3-2-5 structure during build-up that became the platform for Liverpool's controlled progression. Trent Alexander-Arnold often stepped into midfield to join the double pivot, creating a central overload alongside Gravenberch or Alexis McAllister or Dominic Szoboszlai, whoever was in there. This adjustment allowed Liverpool to dominate central zones while maintaining a stable rest defence shape at the back, with the two centre-backs and inverted fullback forming the last line of protection. The front five, typically composed of two wingers, a central striker, and two advanced midfielders, were tasked with occupying the opposition backline and half spaces, forcing defenders to choose between pressing or holding their line. Perhaps the most important change was in the pressing system. While Klopp's Liverpool thrived on emotional surges and collective commitment to high pressing, it could sometimes lack balance. Slot made pressing more methodical, using cues like body orientation, passing angles, or isolation of fullbacks before initiating pressure. It was pressing with purpose rather than pure energy. Midfielders no longer jumped out of shape impulsively, and forwards triggered the press based on pre-planned zones. This made the system harder to play through and far more resilient in transitional moments. It also gave Liverpool the ability to dominate possession with the same authority as a Manchester City or Arsenal, but with their own unique vertical edge. Rest defense was a particular strength of Slot's system. By keeping a three-man structure behind the ball in attacking phases, usually the two centre-backs and one full-back or midfielder, Liverpool were well prepared to immediately win the ball back if they lost it. This controlled aggression meant they could sustain pressure in the final third without overcommitting. It was a fundamental change from Klopp's early years, where gung-ho pressing sometimes left Liverpool exposed. Under Slot, the team didn't press to win the ball, they pressed to dominate territory, forcing opponents to play long and loose shape and creating waves of pressure that allowed Liverpool to dictate both tempo and space. Under Jurgen Klopp, Ryan Gravenberch never quite found his place. Despite his clear technical ability and athletic profile, he often appeared tactically disconnected, floating in midfield without defined responsibilities. Gravenberch, with his ball carrying and flair, really struggled to fit the mould of a Jurgen Klopp team. His limited appearances felt more like experiments than real trust, and it wasn't until Arne Slot arrived that his role was finally clarified. Slot identified Gravenberch's best qualities: ball progression, spatial awareness, and composure under pressure, and gave him a defined role on the left side of a 3-2-5 attacking shape. Gravenberch, at times of course in the lone six position, would sometimes operate as a left or right-sided interior midfielder, positioned in the half space between the fullback and the winger. His task was to receive in tight pockets, often on the half turn, and either link up with the winger or carry the ball through pressure into the final third. He was encouraged to drift between lines, time his runs into the box, and exploit the blind side of opposing midfielders. Slot's system, which prioritised positional play and spacing, gave Gravenberch the room to express himself while staying within a clear tactical framework. Defensively, Slot coached Gravenberch into a more disciplined role. While still not a classic ball winner, his pressing became more intelligent, cutting off passing lanes and pressing at angles to guide opponents into traps. In transition, his recovery runs improved thanks to better positional starting points. When Liverpool lost the ball high, Gravenberch's responsibility was to immediately help close central spaces, often supported by McAllister or the inverted fullback behind him. This defensive balance allowed Liverpool to maintain pressure after turnovers without being overrun in midfield, and it turned Gravenberch from a luxury player into a reliable two-phase contributor. Mohamed Salah has been Liverpool's attacking talisman since 2017. But coming into this season under a new manager and at the age of 32, there were inevitable questions. Could he still deliver elite output? Could he adapt to a more possession-oriented style after years of playing on the break under Jurgen Klopp? Arne Slot not only answered those questions, he reshaped Salah's role to prolong his effectiveness and make him a more complete contributor in a tactically refined system. One of the biggest changes was Salah's positioning. Rather than hugging the touchline as an old-school winger, Slot moved him into narrow, more central zones. Salah often started from the right, but drifted into the right half space or central pocket, especially when Liverpool progressed into the final third. In the 3-2-5 shape, Salah effectively became one of the 5 attackers, forming a staggered line across the top of the pitch. This would allow him to operate closer to goal, make inside runs beyond the centre forward, or drop into combine with midfielders like Gravenberch or McAllister. The tighter space meant quicker interplay and less physical wear, preserving his sharpness for critical moments. Slot also modified Salah's responsibilities in the press. Under Klopp, Salah's role was largely reactive, pressing wide and trapping the fullback. Slot's system required more coordination. Salah was now a pressing initiator, often the first player to jump onto a centre-back or press diagonally towards a goalkeeper, while curving his run to block the passing lanes to midfield. This subtle change turned Salah into a trigger point for Liverpool's structured pressing traps. It was no longer about sprinting aimlessly at defenders, it was about pressing with a purpose. When Van Dijk suffered his injury back in 2020, many feared we'd never see the same dominant figure again. While he recovered and remained solid under Klopp, something seemed missing. Under Arne Slot, however, Van Dijk experienced a resurgence, not just in form but in presence. He became the foundation of Slot's tactical framework, providing calm, authority, and elite distribution from the back. Slot's more controlled system meant Van Dijk was no longer chasing down endless transitions. With midfielders better positioned and pressing triggers more calculated, Van Dijk had the freedom to read the game rather than react to chaos. His defensive jewels remained strong, but it was his positioning, anticipating runners, cutting off angles, that truly set him apart. He returned to being a one-man wall, often neutralising opposing strikers with frightening ease. He also played a crucial role in the build-up. Slot encouraged Van Dijk to step into midfield when space allowed, acting almost like a deep-lying playmaker. His long diagonal balls remained a weapon, but now they were integrated into a larger structure, spreading play to create overloads or bypass pressing lines. Van Dijk wasn't just a great defender in Slot's Liverpool, he was a tactical asset around which the entire defensive structure was built. Arne Slot didn't just survive his first season at Liverpool, he thrived. Inheriting a club still emotionally tied to Jurgen Klopp, he forged his own path, blending Dutch tactical precision with Liverpool's fighting spirit. From re-energizing forgotten talents like Gravenberch to refining the roles of legends like Salah, Van Dijk, Trent, Robertson, Slot showed that a new era doesn't mean losing your identity, it means evolving. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like the video, make sure to smash a like, share and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Up the Reds.